So in this video, I'm going to tell you what are the best SD cards for video, which ones should you use, what's the difference between a budget and a high quality one, and why you should know all of this information. I'll tell you all of that, the basic, straight to the point version, so you don't get stressed and figure out, why does my SD card work with my camera? Stay tuned, I'm going to tell you everything and more. So if you're anything like me and you first start out and buying a camera, you're trying to figure out what's all these SD cards, what's the difference? Does it really make a difference between I use a super cheap one with 16 gigs or if I choose one that's 64 gigs, does brand matter? What's all these numbers does it mean? And the short answer is yes, SD card does matter, especially if you want to do high quality video and photos. So let's break it down to the very basics of what an actual SD card is and what's the different types that I believe that you should invest in. So not to get super technical, but the basics of an SD card is it is what stores your photos and videos all within what is being captured on your video camera. And how SD cards can be simply classified is that you have your type of storage capacity. So you have your different types. You have your 16 gigs, your 32 gigs, 64, 128, and 256. Those are the standard types of sizes that they come in terms of storing. So let's say you want to take 1,000 photos, you're more likely to have, let's say, a 32 gig memory card in comparison to something that's only 8 gig. And the next classification when it comes to having the storage size is also the write speed. Write speed is the speed that your camera actually inputs into the SD card, as well as it transfers all those photos and videos that it captures on that SD card onto your hard drive, whether it's a Mac or PC. So having transfer speeds, higher transfer speeds, allows you to take faster photos and videos, but also allows you to transfer files, photos and videos faster within your PC or your Mac as well. And that is what you're looking for when it comes to high quality SD cards. That is the basics of the difference between what's a cheap one and what's an expensive one. Put that information to the side, but yes, you need to purchase an SD card, not your micro SD card. Micro SD cards are mostly for appliances and more electronic devices, not so much cameras or your phones as well. So first off is when it comes to SD cards, you want to look at getting your standard size SD card. Next, you have your different types of storage sizes. As you can see here, we have 32 gigs as well as 128 gigs. But break it down into your basics. This is your most budget-friendly SD card. As you can see here, it has SD card, high capacity. What that means, 32 gigs of storage. And this is your budget one at class 10, so it writes at least as 10 megabits per second. And as you can see here, UHS 1 will also depend on, if it's UHS 2, there's also be another line here, so it can actually write faster. But this is your most budget-friendly SD card, and you're not going to get the greatest write speeds with this guy, but you're guaranteed at least 10 megabits per second. And I recommend this for people who don't do videos and they just do mainly photos. You're not going to have any issues with this guy. Next is, if you want to get a little bit more serious, is that we have the Lexar here, Professional Series. And what it is it has a class 10, UHS class 3. So you're writing at least 10 megabits, but this number here where the SD card says it's 95 megabits per second, it's a little misleading, but it's taking into account what actually happens. But you're actually looking at half of that if you're lucky. So you're looking at same thing, 32 gigs, you're looking at UHS class 10. Essentially, when it comes to reading these numbers, the higher the number is, and if you have these stamps, the better it is. Next and last is we have this guy. This is the SanDisk Extreme Pro, and there's also the Pro Plus. Same thing, you have 128 gigs in terms of the actual storage capacity, and you have your UHS class 3 here, as well as class 10, as well as UHS class 3. And you also have the V30. The V30 actually means that it caps out at its minimum write speed at least 30 megabits per second. You have your typical SD card right here, And this is actually the best quality that I actually have right now out of my SD card collection. And it doesn't matter what brand you have, Lexar, SanDisk, these are both reputable. But now you know that when it comes to purchasing your SD cards, you want a high enough write speed. The higher the better. So you're looking at, if something says 60 and the one next to it says 95, and they're both 32 gigs, and you're wondering why this one is actually more expensive, is because of the higher write speed. And all you need to do is you look at the class, as well as the UHS type 1 class, U3 as well. And that's the little basics of how you look at an SD card. So now you know the basic understanding of write speeds on your memory cards. A lot of the other things like the V3s, the class 10s, yes, they matter, but with all the other information, you're essentially looking at your highest quality write speed, because even though it has something like, oh, it writes at 120 megabits per second, or oh, it's a 95 megabits per second write speed, but the reality is that's not actually the consistent write speed. And if you go and do a test on these SD cards, the reality is they usually write around anywhere from 30 to 50, especially these Extreme Pro Plus. So the only two brands that I actually use, because I can actually preach and vouch for, is Lexar and SanDisk. And you're looking at the Extreme Pro or the Extreme Pro Plus, as well as the Lexar Professional series. Those are the two brands that I trust and I actually use for all my camera equipment. But you also have to be careful if you buy them online. You have to make sure you read reviews and make sure they're real reviews, because there's a lot of fake and replicas, and the last thing you want to do is buy some third-party site that sells these Lexar and SanDisk memory cards or SD cards, but then you turn out, oh, they're fake ones and they're actually writing at a lot slower, which is why you buying something that has 120 megabits per second, you're like, why is this memory card so slow? Because the reality is it's probably a budget knockoff, so be aware of that. So which memory card is best for you for videos and photos? Well, if you're just a complete beginner and you're looking at just taking complete photos and you're not really looking into videos, then a simple generic Lexar 32 gigs will work fine, especially for photos. And if you want to do your occasional like videos, this guy will do completely fine. But do be aware, if you buy something like this guy, this was my actually very first SD card, is that the transfer speeds are extremely slow. And if it's videos, it's going to be quite an annoyance when it comes to, let's say you record a 10-minute video, it's going to take quite some time to get all that memory onto your SD card into your computer. So be wary of that. But if you're just a photographer, this guy will get you by just fine. So if you still want to stay within the budget range and you want to do a little bit more videos, then I would recommend getting this guy, which is the 32 gigs, which has the class 10, and you're also looking at a little bit of a faster write speeds. So this is for people who want to do more video heavy, as well as photos, hybrids as well. And if you want to get more serious, then the SD card that I actually recommend is getting the size that I make is 128 gigabytes, because that will allow you to have a full day shoot and not have to worry, oh, I have to change memory cards, or oh no, I don't have enough memory. 128 gigs will last you more than enough. And this is the memory card that I actually recommend, especially if you're shooting in 4K video, especially if you use Sony. They're very particular about the XAVS XCHD quality. So if you don't have the right memory card, it won't even let you record videos onto that SD card. So what I recommend is you get yourself the SanDisk 128 gigs Extreme right here, or you can get yourself the 128 Lexar version, and both of these guys will do just fine in terms of recording 4K video as well as taking your photos as well. So if you want to get more serious about getting 4K videos and photos, you're more likely to get the size capacity of 128 gigs. I have not had any issues. I've used pretty much both memory cards, both 128 gigs, and it lasted me for 2 full days of video and photo content. And this is extreme long hours, right? You're talking about like 4 to 6 hours of nonstop taking videos and photos. And that for me is the quality type of SD cards that I actually recommend to you guys. And if you want to get even more serious about video, Link in the description, go check out my video crash course of how you actually film videos, even if you have no idea when it comes to using a camera. I'll show you my behind the scenes budget light setup, how I actually set up my lighting, as well as how you can do this even if you don't have no experience. So story short is that, does SD card matter? Yes. The quality of your SD card will also matter into what exactly you want, into how fast it writes, how fast it transfers files, and whether or not you want to shoot 4K videos. That will heavily dictate which type of SD card that actually works best for you. So that, guys, was my little brief overview of SD cards, which ones you should get. Yes, get yourself an SD card, as well as getting the highest quality. If you're on a budget, yes, and you're a photographer, is that you can just pick up anyone, real the MUN type of SD card. But when it comes to getting serious, card does matter. So links are all in the description for the ones that you want to check out that I mentioned. And my name is Peter. You're watching a Broke Visionary Collective, where we all start with nothing, but you can always create something. Cheers, guys.